it's seeming to me, or to everyone else, to be so, it doesn't follow that it is so. What we can ask is whether it can make sense to doubt it. Whether a proposition can turn out false, after all, depends on what I make count as determinants for that proposition. The propositions which one comes back to again and again as if bewitched, these I should like to expunge from philosophical language. A meaning of a word is a kind of employment of it, for it is what we learn when the word is incorporated into our language. That is why there exists a correspondence between the concepts rule and meaning. If we imagine the facts otherwise than they are, certain language games lose some of their importance, while others become important. And in this way, there is an alteration, a gradual one, in the use of the vocabulary of a language. Compare the meaning of a word with the function of an official, and different meanings with different functions. I might make with my hand the movement I should make if I were holding a handsaw and sawing through a plank. But would one have any right to call this movement sawing out of all context? It might be something quite different. If my friend were to imagine one day that he had been living for a long time past in such and such a place, I should not call this a mistake, but rather a mental disturbance, perhaps a transient one. Not every false belief of this sort is a mistake. But what is the difference between mistake and mental disturbance? Or what is the difference between my treating it as a mistake and my treating it as a mental disturbance? Perhaps I shall do a multiplication twice to make sure, or perhaps get someone else to work it over. But shall I work it over again 20 times? Or get 20 people to go over it? Would the certainty really be greater for being checked 20 times? And can I give a reason why it isn't? That I am a man and not a woman can be verified. But if I were to say I was a woman and then tried to explain the error by saying I hadn't checked the statement, the explanation would not be accepted. The truth of my statements is the test of my understanding of these statements. That is to say, if I make certain false statements, it becomes uncertain whether I understand them. If you are not certain of any fact, you cannot be certain of the meaning of your words either. If you tried to doubt everything, you would not get as far as doubting anything. The game of doubting itself presupposes certainty. Can I be making a mistake, for example, in thinking that the words of which this sentence is composed are English words whose meaning I know? It would be correct to say, I believe, has subjective truth, but I know does not. If someone doubted whether the earth had existed 100 years ago, I should not understand for this reason. I would not know what such a person would still allow to be counted as evidence and what not. We are satisfied that the earth is round. So, rational suspicion must have grounds. We might also say, the reasonable man believes this. Thus, we should not call anybody reasonable who believed in something despite of scientific evidence. The procedure in a court of law rests on the fact that circumstances give statements a certain probability. The statement that, for example, someone came into the world without parents wouldn't ever be taken into consideration there. That is to say, it belongs to the logic of our scientific investigations that certain things are indeed not doubted. But it isn't that the situation is like this. We just can't investigate everything, and for that reason we are forced to rest content with assumption. If I want the door to turn, the hinges must stay put. My life consists in my being content to accept many things. I know that that's a tree is something a philosopher might say to demonstrate to himself or to someone else that he knows something that is not a mathematical or logical truth. Doubting and non-doubting behavior. There is the first only if there is the second. If I wanted to doubt whether this was my hand, how could I avoid doubting whether the word hand has any meaning? So that is something I seem to not doubt after all. Why should it be possible to have grounds for believing anything if it isn't possible to be certain? And don't I know that there is no stairway in this house going 6 floors deep into the earth, even though I have never thought about it? There are cases where doubt is unreasonable, but others where it seems logically impossible, and there seems to be no clear boundary between them. Every language game is based on words and objects being recognized again. We learn with the same inexorability that this is a chair as that 2 times 2 equals 4. There is something universal here, not just something personal. I am sitting with a philosopher in the garden. He says again and again, I know that that's a tree, pointing to a tree that is near us. Someone else arrives and hears this, and I tell him, this fellow isn't insane. We are doing philosophy. It has no meaning to say that a game has always been played wrong. With I don't know, a new element enters our language games. Should I say I believe in physics, or I know that physics is true? Why would it be unthinkable that I should stay in the saddle however much the facts bucked? Indeed, doesn't it seem obvious that the possibility of a language game is conditioned by certain facts? If I were to say I have never been on the moon, but I may be mistaken, that would be idiotic. It makes a difference whether one is learning in school what is right and wrong in mathematics, or whether I myself say that I cannot be making a mistake in a proposition. But how is it, for example, with anatomy? Isn't what a proposition describes there also exempt from all doubt? If I don't trust this evidence, why should I trust any evidence?